All right, we're switching audio. Which audio?
We're using the camera mic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We don't like this one?
No.
Man, we're trying to do better with audio, but we'll keep trying. So I want to show you a couple of new products that aren't the smalls. The smalls have pretty much, they're done. We've taken them to Maker Faire, which I'll tell you about Maker Faire in a little bit. But we've also, it's not that we're tired of the smalls, it's just like we're ready to sell these things, ship these things, so order. We've got the upgrades in the store, we've got the kits in the store. So the kits and the upgrades are ready, and we sold a bunch at Maker Faire. The one thing we didn't have in the store, and we were kind of debating on whether or not we wanted to do it, but talked to a couple people that were interested in a smalls assembled. So that is live in the store right now. Am I correct, Dave? Thumbs up. So what's the price?
$398.
$398. So we've added $100, and the reason we've added $100, this is just going to be my talking points. This is actually a beta of the linear, which I'll tell you about too. But the reason that we wanted to charge $100 more is for a couple of reasons. Number one, packaging is a little bit more, labor is involved, but also that value of taking the time to calibrate and all the time it takes to do test prints. So it is pretty labor intensive when you go all the way to making sure every model ships printing really good. And I don't know if we've planned this, Dave, but I'd really like to include the prints that we test print with, like we do a benchy and some test cubes and stuff. But the final test print, if it's a benchy or something like that, we'll ship that with you to know this is your goal. So if it gets to you, you should be able to print something exactly like we have. So that is $398. So $100 more if you want to, I don't want to build, just give me the dang printer. It will be metal. We're not going to powder coat it. Hopefully you'll customize your own, put stickers on it, whatever you want to do. So the assembled printer is ready to sell. Now, another product that isn't the smalls. This is the heated bed for the Pro. And some of you may have been waiting for the Pro for a few things. You might want some people to tell you what it's like to have the Simple Pro. So we're sending this right here to Thomas Salander, whatever his name is. I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry, Tom. But Tom's Hardware, he does a great YouTube channel, and we're sending him two of these. One assembled, and the other one either partially assembled. I think it's partially assembled. There's some tricky bits that we do with the jig, and we know how to dial these parts in. The tolerances are very tight, so we're sending him just a slightly assembled version, but I wanted him to see how easy it goes together. I want him to see the internals, to see all the parts, and to be able to speak about it with experience of what it's like to do a sort of a kit. We haven't sold a lot of kits. I don't really want you assembling these. A Pro printer, I think, should have the least amount of assembly involved, but I'm doing that for him. So I'm sending him two, one that's already done and we did it, and then one that he can put together to get the feel for what it is like to see all these beautiful parts in your hand. So we're doing that. So he will be reviewing that soon. So check that one off your list soon. As soon as you see that video. I don't know when he's available to do the build, but he's been reminding me, Brook, you said you were going to send those printers, so can I get them? So it sounds like he's ready. One of the reasons that I was going slow on that is because we were waiting on, we thought we had the heat bed done, and then it got in and it was difficult to get to 100C, which is a bummer. So now it is done. We had to do one more rev. It's done. It's in our hands. We're ready to sell these heat beds. But this isn't the whole story. The heat bed for this printer is different because it's actually on top. Why? Well, in our past printers, we did a really thin heat bed. It was a PCB. You can see how thick this one is. It looks near 3/16. It's probably not quite a 1/4 inch. Looks like it's almost 3/16. So this is very, very rigid just on its own because of the fiberglass that's in the middle. So it doesn't have to go through a mic 6. We wanted to put it on top. So this heat bed is actually on top. It's on top of the metal. So we don't include a mic 6. It saves a little cost, and it definitely saves weight. So you keep your stock heat bed on. There's mounting holes for this print bed. So we mounted it on standoffs and tested it, and it is flat enough to use, just stood up on the top. Now, but we thought we could do better, because when you have tape down on this, getting the print off becomes an issue. So we thought, okay, we're going to add a couple of things, and here's what we're adding. This is an acrylic sheet that will be put underneath the heat bed and then has mounting holes to bolt it down to the top of the bed. Why are we putting magnets underneath? Well, first of all, these are special magnets. These are samarium cobalt magnets that are good to 200 plus. I think it's like 240, 230, to what? 300. To 300 C. So these samarium cobalt magnets go to 300 C without losing any of their strength. Most magnets, cheap magnets that aren't samarium cobalt, actually even rare earth magnets like these but different, neodymium, those lose some of their magnetism at high temps. So these are the right magnets to buy. They cost more, but we like to do it right. So we've squished these into these little pockets. It does provide a little bit of an air gap because we don't want to transfer much heat to the aluminum bed underneath. That sucks off the heat, and we don't want to do that. When you heat up metal, we've got a linear rail mounted under there. You heat up metal and it not only sucks off heat, makes it slower because there's a larger thermal mass, but it also just makes it slow, and it could even slightly warp the metal. So you don't want that to heat up as hot as the heat bed is. So this provides an air gap in some places, and then it only transfers with a little bit of acrylic, which is a bit of an insulator. It doesn't really conduct very well. So we push those magnets to the top because we now have a blue steel or spring steel heat treated. So spring steel is great, but we tried regular spring steel, and it wasn't as pretty. It can tarnish because the top is just steel, but it is spring steel. It magnetizes, and so you can see that it's holding the magnets on there. Now, just the magnets alone don't keep it from sliding around. So we've got these indexed holes, and I'll demonstrate it on this spot right here. So now you can just put this down, and you can see it's quite a bit of force to get that off. So it doesn't want to slide anymore with those indexed holes, and there's little handles on the edge so you can pop it off. So we got PEI on the top here. PEI is, we used to use Kapton, blue tape if you don't have any heat. Blue tape is ugly when you pull the print off. It's a little bit ugly. And actually it's pretty hard to get that print off because that blue tape, if you looked at it under a microscope, you'd see fuzziness, and that plastic just kind of melts onto that fuzziness, and it's kind of like getting gum out of your hair or off the carpet. So this, with PEI cools and lets go of the print, but you could use Kapton on there if you wanted to. If you're printing a lot of ABS, Kapton sticks really well to ABS. But how do you get it off? Because you don't want to damage the layer of Kapton or PEI. You bend it, and then it pops off. So some manufacturers are selling what essentially amounts to polycarbonate or Lexan as on tape, and that's actually what we use here on the stock Pro. We put that on there as a protective layer. We don't really intend for you to print on that, but some people have been telling me, well, NinjaFlex print sticks really well to that polycarbonate, but it's not really intended. It's a protective layer. Well, we won't put, if you order it with the heat bed, we won't even put that on there because it kind of interferes with the Lexan, the difference in height between just the metal and the tape. It gives it just a slight little bend. We don't like that. So we'll leave it bare metal, Lexan with magnets, heat bed, and then PEI covered on top of this spring steel. And you're going to get a system to get your prints off and a print surface that is reactive to the sensor. It's actually reacts a little better, so you will need to recalibrate because it's going to find the top of this bed is higher than what you had it calibrated to before, so you'll have to recalibrate. But it will be a little more sensitive, and you could raise that sensor up if you wanted to. it's a little more sensitive to spring steel than it is aluminum. It's the density of the material that that sensor reacts to. It's an induction, so it's a little magnet that's waiting for those lines of flux to be interrupted, and it acts like a switch. So a lot of technical mumbo jumbo there, but the reality of it is it becomes a printer and a print surface and an experience of getting your print off that is far superior to blue tape, and I believe far superior to even Kapton on top of a Mic 6 bed, heat bed. So what are you going to do if you don't have one of these printers? Well, you're going to go out and buy one, aren't you? No, you're probably going to look for a size that fits our other printers. So tomorrow we're going to get all of our printers with the various heat beds, with the various cold beds that we have. And I went through them today because we just got this material in. We were trying to decide on the thickness of it. I don't know it off the top of my head. It's like 0.036 inches, something like that. 0.035. But anyway, we're going to size these and put correct index holes. For instance, on the play, there'll be index holes, and you'll clip at the front edges and the back edges. On the simple, you'll have to clip on the front and the back edges, but it'll be a different size. And then there's one print bed that we make that has a hole right here to save thermal mass. You'll clip inside those, and the bed will be smaller. So we'll have to lay out some pictures of even the Plus. We'll have this, and you can put clips on it. So once we source the clips and cut all the right sizes, you'll be able to order these for whatever printer you have. And I concentrate on the metal printers, to be honest, but if you want to bug me to do a flexible bed for something else you have, just write me and ask. But we'll have the models that are popular with us are all the metal ones. So those are the sizes that we will do for this. The reason I'm not including these samarium cobalt magnets, these are at my cost over $1 a piece. You can see there's a lot of money in magnets there. So it'll lower the cost a little bit if you just have the spring steel for your older printer. It still gives you that benefit. These stay very flat. And if you happen to see a bow in the bed, you turn it over and you want it to bow down when you clip it, and then it'll be flat. So if it ends up bowing the other way because you're doing this, you flip it again, and it works out really nice. So anyway, that's the story with this. The cost on this printer, did he have it? Okay. Without, we usually sell our heat beds with and without an ATX PSU. So a little story there. So I hate the ATX. I've always hated the ATX. I continue to hate the ATX. It's just cheap. It's a switching power supply, so you can ship it to Europe, and it takes care of itself as long as you flip that switch. But you can change the cord out, and it works on 240 or 110 here in the U.S. So they're nice, and they're accessible, and they're available all over the world. But you know, laptops are really more common than desktops now, and those are kind of fading away, and they're hard to find and source. So we've got a, so first off, you might have your own, and you don't want to spend the extra money, because we have to mark stuff up when we buy it here and sell it to you for all the trouble and the cash flow and all that. So if, it will be for sale, this system, the acrylic, the magnets, the heat bed, the cut to size with index holes, spring steel, for $129 without the PSU, the power supply. And with the PSU, it'll be $169. Now, our PSU that we're testing, we're hoping that it's going to be this smaller one that we've sourced from China. We have to add the cord, do a print to cap the ends. You can see them on the Prusa printers. They're pretty popular with 3D printers. It kind of looks like a big brick that just sits there. You know, we've got these small bricks that only go to 5 or 6 amps. This one's 5 amps. We need 5 amps to run these printers without a heat bed, but you need a lot more amperage. It'll be a 30 amp power supply. They're pretty cheap to us, but we got to dress them up and do the wiring. So that ends up adding a lot. So here's a comment from Rick Scott. Oh man, the heat bed system is awesome. Sigh. My poor credit card. He's Smalls customer number 1. He's got the first Smalls. So with the Smalls, be happy to do this system. Probably just, I'm trying to remember what the edges of that are like. They're flat, right? So the clips should work. So anyway, I'll get a system for the Smalls as well. Likely without the, you know what we'll do? Here's what we'll do. The smalls base, you could put one on just like you could this, because it's the same print bed as the same holes for the screws and everything as the play, so that one will be covered. When you upgrade, it's the same as the play upgraded one, and with the new bar ends that we're going to release the files to or already have, one of our customers, was it Rick? I forget who did it, but somebody, we forgot to drill the holes because we were doing different hole spacing in the ones that we were making here, and then I realized, well, if you just print a new bar end, you don't have to mess up that Mic 6 bed, so we're going to leave it as is, or we'll decide to ship those printed parts. But the point is, you'll have the same system for the heat bed for that. So if you got other questions about this heat bed or the flexible plate that we're going to be selling, we're going to try to get those in the store ASAP, maybe tomorrow. The reason we're trying to get this stuff for sale is we have a Memorial weekend sale, and it starts midnight tonight. So I hope you didn't just order something. That sale is going to be for everything in our store. It's going to run from midnight tonight all the way through, I believe, midnight on Monday. And you can buy whatever you want for, how much off? 15%. 15% off everything in the store Memorial Day weekend, or Memorial weekend. So, and we're going to start it a little early, hoping to catch some of you at work, sneak in a little time to order from Printrbot. So anyway, we'll try to get these for sale this weekend. There'll be a lead time on those because we have to wait on material and stuff, but we get it really fast. This is our, I'm sorry, the Smalls Assembled is already in the store, so you can pull the trigger on that and save a little money. And then that's our new products that I want to talk about. So I want to tell you a story about Maker Faire, but let me check something here really quick. I've been playing around with, let me just move these. Thomas, you got your printer coming soon. I've been playing around with Octoprint, and you know, we used to sell the Go, this big one. We used to sell that with Octoprint on board, and you could, we just threw the kitchen sink at that old printer and totally regretted it later. But yeah, I had it all set up in my office, and now it's not working, which is awesome. But no matter, I'm going to tell you about why I'm messing around with it. So the prosthetic printer is humming along. We've got a second model that we are developing, and that one is going to be flat packable. So the one that we did for Jeff at Create O&P is printing away. He's very happy with his high flow hot end, by the way. And I talked to Carl earlier. He's hoping that those will be in my hand Friday next week. We'll see. We won't hold him to it. But hopefully those will be in the store next Friday, a week from tomorrow. But if not, the following Monday or early that following week. But anyway, so it's 33 watts, and it can be swapped across all of our printers, even without a heat bed. Now I say that because the hot end pulls a certain amount of amps, and you can't really raise that too much with this little 5 amp power supply. So this limits the high flow hot end to a certain wattage. But we have another hot end that we are doing at 44 watts, and that will be the high temp hot end. So the high temp will naturally be high flow as well. It'll be the same dimension, so it's taller. It goes to 450C. It has a new sensor that it's not really a thermistor, it's not really a thermocouple, but it's sort of a different thing. You know, it's similar to like the PT100, but this will be more accurate than the PT100 that you'll see. I think E3D sells one, but they require this little electronics package to do the math on that temperature sensor and how it communicates to Marlin. We're going to, Carl's custom making this so that it just requires a firmware update with any of our existing printers, and we'll have a firmware ready for this one as well. So that lookup table, if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. The software in the printer will be able to just plug in this new sensor. So physically, the hardware will be a plug-and-play swap. The firmware you'll reload, and it will be accurate, more accurate than our current one, up to those high temperatures. Our current one, you get up to 300. Now, we don't allow you to go to 300 with the current one. It has Teflon liner in the UBIS 13S, and that starts to break down above 275. It starts to get weird. So you don't want to go above 275, and I think that's where the limit cutoff is. So you would, we stop at 270, and so we usually print with materials that we set at a max of 270. There's sometimes some drift. When it's shooting up, it'll overshoot the line, and then it'll level and come down and start to do this on the line that you draw. So we draw the line at 270, so it doesn't go to 275 just by that overshoot. So anyway, this new one is more accurate. You get to 300 with the old thermistor, and you start to see drift. It goes off the mark. If you take that thermistor up to 350, 450, it's going to be way off. So what do? You got to get a new a temperature sensor. So we've created one, and I say we, but I mean Carl. Carl's got this fancy invention that he's done. He's done a lot of testing on it, and he's getting those manufactured, and he's going to have them custom made for our application so that our firmware can talk to just the wires plugged in, and it won't require extra electronics. So we think it'll be the best thermistor or temperature sensor on the market for 3D printers, because it'll be accurate to plus or minus 1 degree all the way up to 450 degrees. Now, what prints at 450 degrees? I have no idea, except that I know that PEEK, and I've heard of a material called PEKK that's becoming popular in FDM printers, specifically for medical applications. These that plastic can be used in knees and head implants. I have no idea why you would want that. It's got to be so expensive. But PEEK, this beige stuff on our UBIS 13S hot ends, it's very, very hard. PEKK is a sister to PEEK. And the other one that's a name brand is called Ultim, or PEI is the scientific abbreviation for the long name. I don't know what it is. But anyway, it's Ultim is also expensive. I just got some in, by the way. Hey, is this still live? It just went green for a second, and then it went red. We're still good?
Looks good.
Okay. But anyway, Ultim is the name brand. You'll see like Stratasys talk about Ultim, and they're starting to talk about printing with PEEK. In some ways, PEEK is stronger than aluminum. PEKK, same thing. So pretty crazy materials that nobody's been able to print with yet, because we don't have our crap in a pile when it comes to how do you use a thermistor. You can't, not that high. So now you got to go to thermocouple. Well, that's problematic. So we got this other temperature sensor that's working, and we're going to do it easier than the other guys. So that's the story. So anyway, I'm excited about that high temp, and that's the one that's going to go in these prosthetic printers. But we've been talking back and forth on the phone, and he said, listen, we tried the Vicky, the small or the mini Vicky. It's the regular old school, like 1990s called, and your LCD display is there, you know. No offense to them, but, you know, I used to ship with that same LCD thing, like 16 characters by 3 lines. It's handy. It's a little bit slow, you know, it's like not very responsive. It's one color LCD. They have like an upgraded LCD that's like a bigger screen, more pixels. Ultimaker uses that one, but it's still monochromatic. I think it's butt ugly, and that's why I just stopped selling that LCD. We made 3 versions of it. The last one had a really expensive, very, very reactive or like responsive digital encoder that we use. So like 1 click, there's these little detents on that knob, and like 1 click meant 1 number when you're moving the temperature. Whereas the other ones are like you turn it, it'd go like 3 degrees, and then you turn it back and it'd go 1 degree back. It was just a nightmare. So that little mini Vicky suffers from that. It's not very accurate because they're using cheap encoders. And anyway, so we put that on there, and it's convenient, but it has a micro SD slot, and it's kind of finicky if you got big mittens like I do, and he didn't like it too much. So I was like, well, you ought to try Octoprint. And the benefit to that is, well, you can move files to your Raspberry Pi with Octoprint on it, so you can have a whole bunch of files. That's cool. You can optionally slice with Cura on the Raspberry Pi. And don't even bother with the other Raspberry Pis. Like I was actually testing on a Raspberry 2 B+. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But the Raspberry Pi is a little bit slow until you get to the 3, and then it's pretty snappy. And what that does is you put this Raspberry Pi, so you need I have the screen attached here, but you would need, it's a computer. So the Raspberry Pi is right here. This is an older one, so I recommend the 3. I recommend getting the camera. The camera is really cool, and it can point at your prints, and you can see a live video stream, or you can set up a little thing that does little pictures and puts them together in a video for a time lapse. There's all kinds of settings. But Gina is great, who wrote it and maintains it, and you should go support her on Patreon too. She's doing great work. This is with the Raspberry Pi official LCD touchscreen, and so there's another board on the back. You can just get these off Amazon. No need for me to resell these. You can go do it. And so this puts a touch screen on it that's nice 7-inch, I think it's 7-inch touch screen. I broke the front plate. There's a glass plate that comes around, it's a nice bezel. I broke it. But anyway, I got some more. So anyway, that's the Raspberry Pi with the screen. Now I have an Edimax Wi-Fi plug, but on the Raspberry 3 you don't even need that. This is an older one, but now they make it with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built in. Really cool. It's a much faster processor in the 3. So don't bother slicing unless you have a 3. And that is optional. But it's a great interface that I'd love to show you, except I can't, because my stupid computer won't hook up to it. So see how good it is? You can't get it to work. Well, I did what I usually do. I rushed around at the last minute, and so yeah, my demo sucks. But anyway, so I'm messing around with the Pi, and the question I had was, you know, I know the Pi works, or the Octoprint works. Just plug a USB cable into any of our older Printrbot printers, and it works great. So it runs it just like a computer. You can take your laptop, you know, wherever you want to go, and you don't have to tie up your computer when you're printing, and you get that video feed and all that. It's pretty cool. But then I thought, well, Rob told me, the guy that wrote the firmware for this, he works for TinyG, or 10 miles squared. He said, yeah, I did this Marlin emulator in here, so it works with Windows, Cura. What you've been using Cura 2.5 or 6? 6 is the latest, I think. He's using 5. He even uses it on a really old, crappy Windows 10 laptop. I mean, we have a stack of Windows laptops. Don't get me started. But we put Windows 10 on an old one because Windows 8 was a nightmare for me. And it works fine. It prints. You can print with Cura on Windows, no problem. But you can hook this Raspberry Pi up to the G2, and it works with Octoprint. So what's neat is, you know, you can't manually move this around, but if you have that desire, I want to move, you know, you like to move your bed around for some reason, or heat up the hot end before you start a print or whatnot. Don't move the bed when it's on. You can move them around manually. You can send G-code commands in Octoprint. You can stream right from Octoprint to your printer. So I'm going to be setting up our print farm with Raspberry Pis and Octoprint, so you'll see more about that in the coming weeks. But if you have a Raspberry Pi laying around, check it out. I haven't looked at it in a few years, actually, and it is fantastic. And one thing I really like about it is, you know, on a computer, it looks, I'm just going to reboot this. Maybe I'll get lucky. I doubt it, but we'll see. On a computer, what was I saying? Lost my train of thought.
It looks fantastic.
Oh, yeah. On a computer, it looks fantastic. It's got this little interface. It's nice and clean. I like her design. But when you take out your phone, or if you have a little small touch screen on your Raspberry Pi, and Adafruit makes some really small ones that are cool. It's got like 3 sizes. Or you go to this big touch screen and you're using it as a little touch computer, internet device or something. you could have a different Pi, or your touch screen's over here. The Pi that lives on your computer is over here. So the Pi is headless when you run Octoprint. You don't need to hook a computer to it. You have to get it all set up with a screen and keyboard and mouse first, but then it's done and it's running. It's a headless web server that serves up the interface, and you can use your phone as the where is my phone? Oh, it's charging. You can use your phone as the touch screen for your device, so you can control it that way. You can use your browser too. But on these small screens, if you've ever pulled up some websites on a browser on your phone, they look kind of bad because they're not sized properly. Everything's really small. That's why Windows 10 tablets, they bug me a little bit. Because it's like, where's my finger going? And you got to zoom in to get that. Well, they have it's called Touch UI. They have a plugin system. And that plugin system is really cool. You can search for all these crazy plugins. But the Touch UI plugin, you just activate it, it reboots. And now when you pull it up on your phone, it has these big buttons to control things. The interface is just a couple of colors on a black screen. It looks really nice, so it's really practical to use from even a small screen. So that's why I like it. All right, so that's my plug on Octoprint, and to let you know that even though we have our own touchscreen and cloud service for the Pro, you're kind of left without that on the older printers. So we're gonna try Octoprint on some of our older ones, and we'll share our experience with you. But some of you probably already running it. So I do think it's really good, and Gina's doing a great job. Go support her. All right, I'm going long, but I'm jazzed. So I'm going to tell one story about Maker Faire. We got any questions? Hydrate or die. Again, Memorial Day sale coming midnight tonight. Runs through Monday night at midnight. And that's it. 15% off everything. Awesome. If you've got questions, ask them now. All right. One story and I'll go. So, at Maker Faire, the best thing about Maker Faire is the people. The worst thing about Maker Faire is the people. Wait, that's just like business sometimes, No, I mean, I had this, I'll tell the bad story first. I had this one guy come up to me. He was very upset. I mean, we made a scene, me and him. I got red-faced. I got upset. He was so mad at me, and here's why. He had a printer that his company bought 2.5 years ago. It was a Plus dual extruder. The guy that got it purchased through his company, they fired him. He's no longer with them. He said he didn't work out. No big deal. But he never really got that thing running. It's hard to run dual extrusion. I'm going to be playing around with some new dual color prints with our old extruder board, just for fun. And by the way, if you want to join that fun, write me, Brook at Printrbot.com. But here's what I need you to be if you write me, and I'm going to send you a free extruder board. First off, if you have a dual extruder, we should hook up, because one guy already on Twitter, Paul, has contacted me and said, hey, yeah, I've got one. I've got the extruder board. I've got it printing dual color. He had the diamond hot end, which is this crazy 3-color thing, and he was doing 3-color prints. Well, you'll be able to do 3-color prints with the extruder board, so you could just get on board. But what I want to do is that 3-into-1, kind of like Prusa is doing. Brian went over to the Prusa booth at Maker Faire and saw some really, really nice multicolored prints. It's not just layer of red, layer of yellow. It's like multicolored prints, like, that changes multiple colors on one level. And he's getting ready to release all of that. So I want to be ready to play around with that with my extruder board. So you need to be able to be pretty technical if I'm going to send you an extruder board. Somebody that's comfortable recompiling firmware, comfortable maybe tracing down pins and how that works, reloading firmware, printing this 3-in-1 thing. Right now you can find the 2-in-1 on Thingiverse. I think they have a 4-in-1 on the Prusa. You got to do Bowden tubes, so I have no experience with that. I'm going to give it a shot. But anyway, so that's going to be fun. But at Maker Faire, Brian is there and he's telling me about these prints, and we got some people that are mad and they want to talk to me about how bad the dual extruder was, and we don't even support it, and all that kind of stuff. So the truth is, it's just old, and new customers get top priority. So I told him, well, you didn't buy it, you didn't spend any money. The guy that bought it left you guys high and dry. So I'm not going to help you any more than what information's on the internet about the dual So we argued for a little bit, but we finally came to an agreement where, listen, I'm interested in the dual. I'm interested in triple. I'm interested in pushing that technology, but write me, we'll find what you need, we'll get this thing working. But really, Maker Faire was just filled with wonderful, wonderful people. And the story I wanted to tell was this older gentleman, he's retired, and he was with his friend. I forget their names. But he was just kind of hanging out, and I walked up and I was talking to him, and I was like, what are you into? Well, he had a long career in doing factory automation, and I forget what he called it, but it was a little foreign to me. But it had to do with running very complicated machinery with very precise control, and for manufacturing. And I was like, awesome, but what are you working on now? And he goes, well, and he showed me these rubies that he found in his hometown. His mom gave him dug them out of the ground, these rare rubies, and he wanted a way to polish them into a perfect sphere so you could use it as a gemstone in like a ring or a necklace. He built this little robot to polish those perfectly round. It would like move the gemstone and it would buff until it was round. So he showed me those. It was just a beautiful thing. So I was like, wow, you build robots? And he's like, yeah, what I'm working on right now is a lawnmower robot. And I was like, cool, I've been talking about building a lawnmower robot for a long time. And Brian's talked about it, and Carl's talked about it, and we tested one on the TV show even that was awesome as this big tank, and it was just so cool, and I want one. So I've got old lawnmowers, so why not? We built that tank for the Printrbot tank and open sourced it. It's just this little tank, you can do remote control. So we're like stepping closer, but this guy, he had built just a regular little push lawnmower. He put wheelchair motors on it. He made it 4-wheel drive. He used the Sabertooth motor drivers, same ones we have in-house for the skateboard, or no, it was for the tank. I don't remember if we use those on the skateboard. I don't remember, but anyway, I have some. So I was like, awesome, those are great. A little hard to understand, but they're really powerful. So I've got some of the stuff that I need to build one. So I'm going to build a robot lawnmower, and I'll give you updates on this show. It has nothing to do with Printrbot, except that there'll be some printed parts involved, and I'll share my knowledge. But always like a side project to distract me from work, and hopefully it'll entertain you, and maybe some of you guys, if you've always wanted to build a robotic lawnmower. There's been books about this. There's been, for years, ever since I got into this and before, people were doing this. But I'm not that smart with electronics and programming. This guy's really smart. Brian's way better at certain things than I am. So I'm going to try to get the team together here and share information, and we're going to build some robot lawnmowers. What I love is it's basically a weapon. You know what I mean? It's like a robot with a huge cutting blade, 2 machetes spinning around, right? So anyway, it should be fun. Not necessarily safe, but the cool thing about this guy's approach was he was really interested in autonomous lawnmowers. And he says, I don't want to put the wire in the lawn. That's too easy. I want to do a GPS signal. I want to do some kind of a pattern. And Brian said, you could, in Autodesk Fusion 360, you could just tell it that your cutting blade is as big as the lawnmower. You can throw down a map of your yard into Fusion 360 and do a cutting path just like you were CNCing a piece of metal with a huge blade. So I was like, that is brilliant. And he was like, oh my gosh, I got to get Fusion 360 out and give it another shot. Maybe we can do a G-code path that we can just load up to the lawnmower and let it run. And then we started dreaming about, well, you could cut different patterns. You could tilt the bed and cut patterns into the lawn where one side's high, and so you can really see where that goes. I know when you cut the yard this way, the blade is spinning one way, you turn around, come the other way, and it's spinning the other way. So you have this contrast in the way light hits the grass. So it already has this potential for patterns. But wouldn't that be great? Happy birthday, lawn mowed across the front lawn, or you go out to the North 40 and you got that mapped out, so you pull up that program and you're mowing, sitting, drinking a pina colada. Anyway, so I'm finally going to do it. We're going to do that robot lawnmower project. I'm going to 3D print as much crap as I possibly can and try to justify it as a business expense. Did I just say that? But you know what I mean? I have to like cross the wires, cross the stream somewhere. But anyway, so I want to tell you about that gentleman. I'll share his, let's see, I should probably just pull it up. I need to share his email address. You need to go watch his videos. Mail.google. Really great guy. Really enjoyed talking to him. I like retired folk. Basically, they've got a lot of living underneath them, and they're just, it seems easier to talk to older folks than younger folks. Have you ever thought about that? I think it is. So this guy's name is, yep, Irvin Brubaker. Even sounds like an old name, no offense. Irvin Brubaker. And I didn't ask if I could share his name, just did. But check this out. So he's got this, oh, can you see this?
Yeah, I'm putting a link up also.
Here's the, I'll send you this email, Dave. But look, he's got this little lawnmower, little four-wheel drive. We're back on. Sorry, guys. We dropped the stream. Two things. I'm talking too much, and so this can't sustain. I guess the battery ran out, and I stole the plug for my phone, I think, so sorry about that. So we're back. Anyway, the story I was telling was about this gentleman, so we're going to post that link to Irvin's YouTube, and you can see his little lawnmower running around. And he's got some problems to solve to make it even better. Brian's interested, I'm interested, maybe you're interested, and we'll get a little project going on the side, okay? So that was pretty much it. I wanted to tell a story about a kindly gentleman and his friend that we met at Maker Faire. Really cool. Now I'm excited about this project. A couple of questions, or at least one. This is from Rick too. Are the printable files available for the Z Smalls upgrade, the 12mm bearing holders? Well, they certainly will be as soon as I post them. Have we, is that online?
No, that's not, but I can make an STL of the...
So yeah, we've got that file. We'll not only share the STL prints, we'll get that model live in Fusion 360, and we'll put those STLs in the regular places. Product page, Imagine, My Mini Factory, and even Thingiverse. So we'll get those posted. Sorry about that. Let's see, what else? Pretty much it. Unless there's any more questions, you want to check one more time?
Yeah, I'm checking now. Let me see if there's anything.
Man, we had a long show. 45 minutes? My gosh, that flies. What do you got?
Two things. One, those rubber feet on the Smalls are a real bummer. and then possible dual extrusion kit for the simple metal.
Ooh. Okay, so two things. Number one, a customer said, man, these rubber feet on the bottom of the Smalls are a bummer. Well, this was the old one that had these feet on the bottom, and they were ill-designed. These were designed for a very, very small, thin piece of metal. I can't find something that is intended to go into a 1/4-inch plate or a 3/16 plate. So we went on McMaster-Carr and we did find these smaller ones that plug into that thick of a plate. And so you got to twist them and twist them and twist them and get them in there, jam them in there. So I can only give you two suggestions. Number one, print your own. Okay, if you don't like what we shipped you, print something in NinjaFlex that you do like. But it's hard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small wood screw in the bottom of mine to flare out the rubber, the ones that we did give you that don't look like these. I'm going to put a small screw in the bottom from the top, and it'll spread out those, and so it should stay a little better. But I wanted soft rubber so it dampens the vibrations and dampens the sound that it transfers to the table or whatever it's sitting on. And there's not a lot to choose from for this application, so I apparently chose one that this customer didn't like. My apologies. Second thing she or he mentioned was, is there a possible dual extrusion kit for the simple metal? Well, see, that's the thing. So if we can, like I never did a dual for the simple because the way that we used to do duals were we put two extruders next to each other. You had to calibrate X and Y, pain in the butt. There's a video on YouTube where Steve goes through and tries to explain how to calibrate the Go, which had 3, and you got to calibrate all the X and Y, which is really difficult. And if it ever moves, you're screwed. It looks bad when you print it. And then you got to get all of the Z's aligned perfectly, and so it was just a nightmare. So there are people doing like, you know, rocket back and forth, raise the print head up, down, and like when one's not printing, it's over here, it's up, it's down, mechanical, whatever. And Ultimaker still has this problem. I think it's moving one out of the way when it's printing. I think there's something mechanical going on, but I could be wrong. I don't have one. But I know they have two independent heads. Now the benefit of that is you can have two independent temperatures, so you can have hips as a soluble in like water, boiling water, it kind of dissolves. It takes a long time, but anyway, you can have hips at one temperature and like PLA at another. So two heads does have that advantage. But with this new system that actually it wasn't Prusa, some guy, some community member came up with this idea. Well, if I have a different motor and I do Bowden tube and I bring those two Bowden tubes into a Y and down to a single, you have one hot end, so your cost just went down. You don't have two hot ends, you have one. You do have two motors. Well, one can be printing just like a Bowden tube. It just slips past that other channel and it's printing, pushing the plastic down. When it wants to change colors, it pulls it way back, like a retraction of 2 millimeters is normal. This would be like a retraction of 30 or 50 millimeters, like rah, all the way back. And it pulls out really fast. And so whatever misshapen end is, you have to deal with. So they usually come up to the corner and print out, you know, purge to make sure if it was strung out and did something weird on the end of it, it like purges that out. And then it goes back to printing. And then it can switch with that one extra motor, pulls this one back, pushes this one down the Y, passes the other channel, goes into one hot end. So you can do some slight temperature variations and print with two Bowden tubes, two motors, but you have to have enough drivers on your electronics to power the two motors independently. And then he's done something clever where layer changes you can already do in Cura. Hey, at a certain layer height, perform this G code, and that G code can say switch hot ends. So it can push. You can have this code that pulls up this one, pushes down this one, and now you're printing again. So he did something clever where you can actually process a file that has multiple colors, changing colors on one layer. It does the fancy pants G code to output something that Cura and other slicers can recognize to change the color mid-layer and multiple times. So it bloats your G code, but it takes simple mechanics, one hot end, two motors, two Bowden tubes, or three or four, and allows you to be able to do multicolor prints. So will I do multicolor print or multi-material add-ons for my other printers that I never chose to do that in the past? Well, yeah, I could now, if we can get it to work, because I don't like on the simple hanging out two extruders, two hot ends, two motors. To mash, I saw one guy do it. It looked terrible, but it did work. And you know, the sag on the front with the extra weight is just not a good idea. So it'll actually lighten the weight on this by removing the motor and the extruder, putting that off on a Bowden setup. So there'll be two of those, and the weight won't have to be carried by the arm. And yes, so I'm willing to do that, having kits to add multi-material, multicolor printing to any of the bots via Bowden tube, extruder board, and all the firmware magic that we'll have to figure out. So anyway, that's the plan. Have no idea when. It also simplifies, it removes all the calibration nightmare that was dual color printing. So if it's just a firmware and an update to your G code, and that can be automatically in once you set that up. So it's just a lot easier to live with multi-material two-color print or multiple color printing with this new setup that Prusa's kind of adopted, and they're making it even better. So my hat's off to you, Joseph. And I will follow suit and continue to stand on the shoulders of giants. So anyway, when is Brook's version of the Smalls out? Well, I thought that was going to be this week. Didn't happen. It's done, completely finished. Just need to release the files and get it up for sale. So Dave, give me a kick in the pants to get that live tomorrow. I have decided on the price finally. It's not going to be $300. It's going to be $500. I basically want it to be so high. I had somebody tell me one time, set your price if you want to make money, which I never really have, but set your prices where when you tell them the price, people feel like they want to either slap you or reach for their wallet. They can't decide which. What that really means is I want this printer, well, first of all, it has a lot more cost involved. So it needs to be a couple $100s more. Plus, I'm going to build it. So if I'm going to take time to build these limited edition printers with the rails and the powder coating and the Printrbot logo, it needs to be more money because I just don't want a lot of people to buy them. So, I mean, I guess it'd be a nice problem to have if everybody wants one, but I'm starting with 10. I'll try to get those in the store tomorrow. There'll be a week or two lead time because I'm slow as heck to get things done and hard to nail down. But I'll try to get that in the store tomorrow. It's going to be $4.99, and it will be rails all the way around, built by me. So that's the answer. That's the price. Lance Day in the morning. How you doing, Lance? Good to see you. Only Lance knows what I'm talking about, and maybe some others. But anyway, good to not see you, Lance, or to know that you're here. A friend of mine from Tulsa. Hey, anyway, so that's it. That's the show for this week. Hope to see you next week at promptly 4:30 on Thursday. And as always, I'm right on time. Until then, happy printing. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Come to our store and buy something, and then enjoy your weekend, okay? Great to see you guys. I don't see you. It's great to be here with you guys virtually. And until then, happy printing.